Oh, Natalie, how official.
I don't trust Facebook.
All right, yeah, Carlos is in too. There we go. Perfect.
There we are. Yeah.
Everyone's here.
What's up, party peoples? Can you hear me?
Hello. Yes, welcome to this funny conversation, this beautiful conversation. So honored to have you.
Hi guys. I'm just trying to sort out my sound here. But
Okay.
hi.
Hi.
Let me try this again. Oh wait, where's my?
Yeah, Renee,
There you go.
The introduction, I mean.
What's up, everybody?
Let's do with you, man.
It's so weird. I'm gonna switch my headphones.
Eli, can you hear me? We are live.
Hello, am I getting audio on this?
It's booting up.
What's up, Mayor?
Hey, what's up, brother? Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Can you?
Loud and clear.
Oh, you guys can hear me? Okay, good. So I'm set. What's up, everybody?
Yeah.
Hey,
Everybody is good. We are now live.
good afternoon. Nice to meet everybody and see you guys again. See you again, Zear. As well, Renee.
It's been a minute.
What's up?
I'm here in Miami. I mean, there's a lot of light here. This is why I have sunglasses, because it's so bright.
Oh, good.
It's overcast.
So what up, good people? What up, good world? What up, everybody, party people in the place to be? We're here, we're live. Another day, another dollar, another Saturday, another GECSUMMIT Session here. My name's Renee John Sandy. I'm one of your co-producers of the Global Empowerment and Cultural Summit. Basically, this is something that we've been doing for this is our 8th session here. We've been doing it every Saturday online. And I'm one of your co-producers. We get everyone together so that we can do these wonderful sessions of getting people here from all over the world to connect, have some fruitful conversations, and really explore what we've been doing and taking hip hop to a whole nother dimension of just connecting people and showing what we're really about. Originally, we were supposed to do this in person in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil, 2019, due to everything that's going on in the world with the pandemic and everything. We know that what's going on with that. So we decided that we're going to connect and do this online. So we decided to just do this every month and have an installment of what we plan to do 2022 in person in Rio de Janeiro, basically showing what hip hop builds the bridges, builds generations, builds community, builds love, builds connectivity all over the world. So we're here today to really give honor and privilege and show the bridge of connecting our global pioneers here. So that's the theme for this one here. We, again, like I said, we've been doing this for 8 different Saturdays and showing people what we've been doing from education to health to educate to all different types of the parameters and the elements of hip hop, showing how beautiful and how much we build within this. So that's what we're doing here. We have some dynamic people here today, some real trailblazers, and we like to really give props and love to people here that are living, rather than having to talk about someone while they're not here. Like let's have a conversation with the people that are here, that are still doing that and still living and have the hip hop, have just the culture in their blood, so that's what we're here to do today. And first, I want to thank everybody that's watching today. Thank all of our panelists that are here today, because you're going to hear some really dynamic conversations that are happening from what we're here to do here. I want to say first and foremost, I want to celebrate, and I'll celebrate two things. Number one, celebrate someone who actually would have been on this panel today. Unfortunately, they've moved on to the next space. We want to give just a quick moment and, give him his roses. Is Ty from the UK. The reason why we're here today, I to even one of the co-hosts here, Ty connected us here, Mikko and myself. And it's funny how he connected us about 7-8 years ago. And then we reconnected through another group chat. And then we looked at our phone, we're like, wow, we got connected and didn't even realize that we were connected like that, and now me and Mikko talk on a regular basis. So I just want to give him his props and, take a moment to say, Ty is a pioneer. Ty was the person that just connected people. Ty was all about hip hop. So just want to say love to him and, give him a moment and give him his props. Second celebration we want to say right here is to one of our co-producers here whose birthday is today, that, always just, is about love, always got a smile on her face, always got jokes. And, it's always about love. We're going to say much love to Natalie. Happy birthday to you. We don't have a beer, cerveza here, but we have some water right here, but we want to get cheers and, and say much love to you. Thank you, for being the person that you are. Thanks for, taking the time out even on your birthday to even, host this event. So we want to say much love on that. So getting into that, I want to move forward and introduce our wonderful co-moderators and really show their roses. It's amazing the stuff they do. I call them the dynamic duo. So first and foremost, we get on the phone and we could talk for hours, the three of us, just about hip hop, just about life. Like even when we're talking about this panel, we'll talk about it. Then it just goes into all these other different conversations, and it's beautiful to see what hip hop does. So first and foremost, I want to introduce Msia Clark. Msia is just a wonderful, dynamic woman, a mother, a loving mother, and is a professor at Howard University. Teaches a hip hop class that I was fortunate to be a part of and even witness and see the dynamics of what she does within that. Has been connecting hip hop from Africa, to in her class and showing how the trailblazers and the culture of how everything has just evolved through that. And just being in the space of like really showing all the elements. She has her own podcast, really resonates to understanding what hip hop is and just been living that and showing how education can really emulate, and you can transcribe hip hop into all different platforms of your life and, actually make a living through hip hop, as we see a lot of people here are doing, and, from all realms. So once again, just want to introduce Msia Clark. Much love to you. And our other co-host, part of the dynamic duo, is Mikko Kapanen. Mikko, if people don't know, is a dynamic individual, a curator. He won't say he's a DJ, but he is. And well diverse with hip hop, and I'm saying hip hop on a level global, from all countries all over the world. His knowledge is vast, and really dynamic. He has a show called PEPR Radio, if you don't know, which is which he produces and curates with Chuck D from Public Enemy. So you already know where his life stems of being on the level of like his vision of like equality, social justice, and being in the space of just understanding what true hip hop, what the dynamic is. That's something that that comes out every week. So if you don't know about it, you should look it up online and see what we're doing, what he's doing. And also is a photographer who does some really dynamic stuff. And on a side note, for one of his main hobbies, which is one of his loves, the culture, is football. He's a PSG fan. We already know, if you watch that and you're watching the Euro, like one of his dynamic passions. So, once again, just want to say how you can embody all sports, everything within hip hop and the culture. I want to introduce Mikko Kapanen. Much love.
Thanks, Renee.
So I'm going to pass the torch over to Mikko and Sia so they can introduce our lovely panelists today. And I just want to give one more mention to our wonderful staff here that does everything every month, from Apollonia, Raquel, everyone who does some really dynamic things. I mean, we do a lot of conversation, we have a lot of laughs, we have a lot of giggles, but we put a lot of work into this. So we always truly hope that you enjoy what's bringing, and Natalie, obviously, happy birthday again. We want you to enjoy what we bring forth today in this beautiful panel with hip hop. Here's the torch, you guys. Much love.
Thank you very much. Thanks, Renee. I'll start first, and Msia comes in soon. It's really great. It's really great to be here, and this panel is really amazing. I'm very honored and I feel very privileged, genuinely, to be here with you, spending this Saturday evening, what is evening for me and might be more afternoon or daytime for you guys. Yes, it's very true that we are looking at the hip hop, at least for me, what is close to my heart is always like the international reach, that it had something that has started in New York, in Bronx, and how incredibly privileged are we to have Bronx today in the house? How incredibly privileged are we have like somebody who is coming from the very root of this culture, a founding member of hip hop. That's really amazing. And we are having a lot of great people from around the world. So this is really great. We're going to start off with Ambarin Gadrin, also known as MB, who is a professional dancer, model, host, and pioneering figure in the Indian hip hop community. Great to have you with us today. Do you want to tell us a little bit about you or your identity? I'm quite curious also about like how hip hop and national identity, how they kind of collide and all that. But what kind of role does hip hop play in your in who you are?
First of all, thank you so much for having me here. And I'm truly, truly honored to, just even be stepping on this panel along with all of these legendary people whom I look up to. I'm Ambi from the Rock Fresh crew. And I have been into the culture for about 16 years, give or take. And it just happened, like for me, hip hop was something I didn't plan for it. I did not really think of, it wasn't very premeditated, and it just happened, and it so many times felt like it was looking for me, and because I needed it in my life. And I really had no purpose. I didn't know what I was going to do with my life. I really don't know what I would be doing right now if I wouldn't have had met hip hop 16 years ago in college, when I saw the very first video on MTV. Back then, I had no internet, I had no computer. There was this one MTV show that used to come on every Wednesday, and they had Run DMC's It's Like That. And that video, like, it blew my mind. And all of the breakers in that video, literally, it made me feel like, this is kind of, it's not real. They are just camera tricks and all of that kind of stuff. And I'm like, this can't be real. It's not possible. And so I started off with, the hip hop party dances and popping and a little bit of dance hall and all of the top styles, basically, because I was like, I couldn't believe it. The breaking part of it I was like, this is not real. Like, definitely, no one can spin on their heads or something like that. And from that began something where I started to dig, started to find more people who were doing this kind of stuff in my city. And I was so lucky to meet all the boys that I met back in the day. And the first time when they invited me, and I just went in there, and I was like, oh my God, wow, there's this one guy from my crew. He's doing like 10 flares. There's one guy doing like a wall flip. There's one guy who's, doing like a drill, head spin drill. And I was like, oh my God, am I in the wrong place? I'm probably not in the right, this is not for me. And then I see one guy who is doing all the 4 elements, from the tops to the, footworks to the freezes to everything. And then I was like, maybe let me step in and, I probably can give this a try. It's something that I could probably pull off. And so initially they took me in because I was popping and doing all the top style dances. So for a little bit, I was doing that. And then slowly, I started to learn breaking under one of my crewmates, Bunny. Shout out to him. He's my breaking teacher. So through him, I really saw all the 4 elements and in their, true form. And then I kind of started to get involved in it. And wow, it was amazing. Something that I felt I would never be able to do. I was like, I'm doing this. And all of those things, that come with, people telling you, you won't be able to do this. Oh, you're too delicate. Oh, you're too thin. Oh, you're a girl. This is not for you. Just stick to popping and, the party dances and all of that. And wow, what an experience. And what a lovely journey this has been. And all of the connections, all of the people I've got to meet, all of the journeys that I got to make outside of India, and all of the connections, and also currently me just being on this panel. For me, when I think about it, these are people who have had their journeys as long as, what I'm old, but, it's hip hop being like super young in India, like about 16, 17 years. Uh, it's just amazing and beautiful that we are here. And I can't thank all of the pioneers, all of the people who have given us this beautiful culture. Thank you so much.
Thanks very much, Sampi, and thank you for being here. It's great to have you. I was already mentioning that we are, of course, having a Bronx in our panel today, but that's not just one person. We have next up Carlos Mare, who is, of course, somebody who's from the graffiti side and sculptor, also an academic. And you grew up in New York City and lived through those sort of early days of this culture. I know it's a very sort of huge question, but if you have some kind of semi-concise answer to that, how did you end up becoming one of the most prolific hip hop writers, painters? Where has that taken you in life?
In short, well, first of all, to me, well, thank you guys for doing this and continuing to do this and to advocate for culture and people and artists. I think that is really at the heart and soul of this culture. I am a part of the hip hop culture before it was hip hop. There was no such thing as hip hop when I started, when I was a part of it in New York, in the South Bronx and Manhattan. So we basically created this culture from scratch, and literally props to Theodore and all those guys up top. But it is, as I hear her speak, something that really echoes, I believe, throughout history and time, and reinvents itself in various places in various ways. And it just happened to ignite itself in a place like the Bronx with the art of its time. and the conditions of its time. And so that really dictated so much as to how young people we were gonna respond to the world around us. And as somebody who grew up amongst the MCs and the DJs and the breakers, you know, part of it was escapism, part of it was creativity, part of it is ego and competition. A big part of it is innovation. And another part of it is to be seen where you're often not seen. And, but also community, right? Because this is all about community building. And see, these are some of the attributes that I think have been historic in mankind, so to speak. Just a bit of a side note, because Renee was with me in Russia, and one of the hypotheses I had was, did Russia have hip hop before us? And it's a compelling hypothesis, but we know that to be true. But the hypothesis is because disciplines, these music, art, dance, and philosophy, and all these things have always, with young people, have come together to create something. My curiosity in hip hop, I grew up amongst all the pioneers and legends and painted with them. And one of the things that and I'll keep this short because it's just, my story's very broad, but that I learned early on, especially being a minority, that you had to use words to defend yourself and to defend your ideas. And writers and b-boys, everybody was good at it, but we weren't as articulate as we are now, so to speak, that we can speak in broader terms that tie what we do to the bigger part of our humanity and history of humanity. And so trying to find that and find my place in the world was important, because I had to defend the culture or myself and the culture, and also find critical points of discussion that we ourselves weren't talking about. I mean, I was one of the first out the gate with so many things in the culture, especially academia. And I, you know, I find that very necessary, but I also find innovation wherever you find it, whether it's on the street or in a classroom or a community center. Innovation is key to all of this. And so, and what's cool is how hip hop, all of us, adapt to innovation and lend our voices to it, such as we are doing here. As we go on and have this conversation, you know, I can talk about some more stuff about myself, but I think that it's important to have that context as to, you know, where I come into the picture of this. I mean, yes, I've done a lot of things and do a lot of things, but it's more important for me as to what I'm aiming at or what's ahead of me rather than what's in the past. So with that, I'd love to hear more from you guys and all the great work you're doing.
Thank you. Thank you so much. It's really great. Also, we're having a lot of different elements and hopefully we're covering hip hop very sort of like holistically. Today, it's really great to have you here. Up next on our introduction round, we have Eli Efi from Brazil. He's a Brazilian artist and activist from Sao Paulo. He's also a well-known spokesperson against racism and poverty, and he's done great work on that field. And we're so happy to have you here, Eli Efi. Can you tell us a little bit about how hip hop found you as a young man in Sao Paulo?
We can't hear you. Can you guys hear him?
Yes, we can't.
No.
We can't hear. I wonder if the microphone seems to be on. Can't hear. I wonder if you have external microphone or something, if it's disconnected or no.
Hello?
I think okay.
Can you hear me now?
Absolutely. Go on.
Okay, so how's everybody? I'm so glad to be here. You know, Sha-Rock, oh my God, it's a beautiful thing. So people in my country love you, you know that. You need to go in Brazil at some point somehow, because it's special for, not for only females, but for us too. And the first, you know, female rapping means a lot to us, right? And I'm so glad. This is it's a miracle. Miracle. So yeah, I want to, you know, I started in Brazil in 1987, 1988, you know, and the hip hop, you know, first time hip hop hit my heart. And the beautiful thing was the things motivated, you know, myself to do hip hop, being part of the hip hop as a rapper was the public enemy. You have a behind you, you know, public enemy. The first time I saw, you know, public enemy video, and you know, I have like a identity right away because giving me like a support to I'm stand up for myself, right? So and then before that, I have a low self-esteem. In Brazil, the racism is just insane, right? Still nowadays. And public enemy gave me this support. Choke G gave me this support to stand up for myself. So in that time, like it was the beginning, you have a couple groups in Brazil, but in that time, the break dancer was huge. In Brazil, you know, hip hop started for the break dance. I think there's a lot of places in this world, the break dance, like, you know, this first thing motivated people get in the culture, right? So since it, you know, and I start my group, DMN, but I want to be different. I don't want to do, you know, something that time just talking about, you know, my neighborhood, you know, the people doing the neighborhood, you know, like I want to, you know, be like a publican, talking about black people community, because, you know, in my entire life, in this time I was suffering, my family suffering, you know, be a part in this world as a black people. So that's the reason why I decided to put the name into my group of DMN, as Defensores do Movimento Negro. Who can translate that? Defense of the Black movement, you know? Yeah, so my first song, I was talking about, you know, the way the TV, you know, show the Black people as always have a, you know, a slave, as always as in a bad way. Never show us as something you can, you know, elevate our, you know, our self-esteem. So we didn't go start doing this, and my group was so successful at that time because we put our face on, and we start talking about, you know, social work in the community. You know, they have a different kind of movement. You know, you go learning for this movement, because in that time, before that, in Brazil, a lot of people, young people, you know, me at that time, knew a lot of stuff about, you know, the Black movement in the United States, but I don't know nothing about Brazil, the Black movement in Brazil. So they learned about, you know, Black Panthers, talking to Carmichael, Whippy, you know, Angela Davis, but people don't know nothing about my country, you know what I'm saying? And the most Black population outside the Africa is in Brazil, you know? Brazil is a 55%, more than 55% in Brazil is a Black, you know, so everything, so what was a disconnect in that time. So my you know, my group decide, me and my group decide, okay, you want to talking about this, you want to, you know, everything you learn, you want to share for our people. And that's my, you know, that's my history about in the beginning, the start of hip hop. And now I'm so glad to see a lot of, you know, groups in Brazil, and not only rapper, but DJs, you know, B-boy, B-girls, you know, they have the same vision, and making Brazil be on the page of hip hop in the world. It's so huge, it's so strong. People still find, people still have a voice for who don't have a voice, right? And you have a lot to do. That's my, you know, thing. I'm so glad to be here, because the one thing I feel now as a rap for more than 35 years, so we not, you know, having to complain about the new generation right now, the hip hop generation right now, right? Yeah. But you needed to feel responsible, you know, because hip hop take another way. you know. So back in the day, hip hop inspired me to be who I am right now, right? It inspired everybody right here, I think. So now, back in the day, still inspiring people in our community do things. So, but right now, they inspire do what, right? So the message is now really strong, you know. The message of, you know, the music right now is more about getting stuff or do things, you know, it not, you know, collaborate for our community to be strong. And if you can accept it, they just say, oh, it's okay, it's a new generation, there's a thing he's doing. We are responsible for that too, right? We have to do something to make these kids, you know, put in more love than money, than guns, the drugs, the violence, they're talking about bad things about woman. It still treats about woman as a, you know, as a object. It's not cool. You know what I'm saying? You was talking this before, right? So I feel so proud. You have like a Sha-Rock, you have a Queen Latifah, you have a, you know, Mooney Love, you know, you have a MC Lights. Always putting power, you know, our community of Black people, woman in the coming this generation, just like, you know, it's okay. It's not okay because, you know, we step out and okay, nothing can do. And another thing I want to, you know, just for finish this conversation, my talk. And another thing, if you go to YouTube right now, you see how many young people between 17 or 19 years old to 25 die artists. I'm not talking about people as artists. I could record on one song or one album, on hit, it start making noise, got money, it got shot, it got killed. It's a lie. If you take it like 2018 to 2020, you want to see, it's a lie, but nobody say that. Nobody say nothing about that. So there's something wrong. So we need to like be on top of this as an arts, as a, you know, as a culture. I love hip hop. Hip hop saved my life. For real, for real, for real. Save our life. Give it purpose to our life. So we need to get it together to not be qualified like an old school, but people as building this thing. People as, you know, putting some, you know, to make this thing so huge. In this country right here, I'm in the Bronx right now. That's a, you know, and this country right here, hip hop, you know, he start here, he go to the world as a mirror, you know, for everybody. It still has a mirror, you know what I'm saying, for around the world. So definitely have to do something, thinking about something to make these things working better, you know. It's a freedom. Everybody can do whatever, right? So music is a freedom, but we have a purpose too. You know, our community is still suffering. You know, Black and Latino people still in the same thing. Still like you know, have a lot of issues. I think things getting worse. Be honest to you. You know what I'm saying? So, but you have to get it together to make something happen. You know. Thank you so much. My name is Eli Efi. I'm so glad to be here. Thank you, every single one.
Thank you, Eli Efi. It's great to have you here, and we're also having here each one Lyrik. I remember back in the MySpace days, if you remember MySpace still, you know, I'm sure we do. I heard there a song called Social Ills. I was very interested in South Africa and South African hip hop, and I was kind of like started to do my first visits. I used to live there later on, and later on, my wife and therefore my children are also South African, so dual citizens. And I heard in MySpace song, South African hip hop song called Social Ills. That was very good. It was instant classic for me, and that song was by a Cape Townian crew, Kodessa from South Africa, from Cape Town, South Africa, and EJ is 1/3 of that seminal South African cruise is here today. What was your hip hop awakening like in South Africa? Was it in apartheid or post apartheid South Africa?
Hey, Nico, thanks again for having me on this panel, and a big shout out to every single legend that is on this panel tonight. For me, it's night, of course. It's past 6 already. For me, basically, when I started out, it was in 19 96. So it was post-apartheid, 94. Nelson Mandela was released from prison after 27 years of being a political prisoner on an island, Robben Island. And he was released, but that didn't mean that things were just going to be all hunky-dory, you know. It was still, he was still in the trenches, so to speak. And I remember hearing an LP, a vinyl of a hip-hop group that was very, very active and also rallying people to vote at the time, and they were called Prophets of the City. And they were heavily political in their lyrics. And for me, that just hit a note. And I was like, wow, this is so, you know, if you're thinking about the political environment at the time and how everybody was, you know, frustrated with the situation, people were dying. There was a lot of hardship. I myself come from Mitchell's Plain, which is sort of, yeah, it was a township. We called it a township, but it's in other words, a ghetto area where people were struggling financially. They were poor. I myself come from that. So you can imagine the kind of sentiment that was there at the time, and against politicians and against what was happening. And when Nelson Mandela was freed, it was like, oh my gosh, yes, freedom, you know, finally we can speak our minds. There's freedom of speech. There's not that political oppression, social oppression, financial, economic oppression as well. That was all part of apartheid back in the day. So also, you know, for me, I think hearing that record, it was called Boom Style, because I'm second generation hip hop. So the foundation was already laid when I stepped in. So for me, it was like, wow, DJ Ready D on a scratch vibe, and just the way the music production sounded and the lyrics and the power behind it was amazing. It was, for me, oh my gosh, I have to be part of this, because I felt to a certain degree powerless up until that point. Before, of course, I was, I think, on school still. 96, it was my last school year, high school year. When I graduated, I did form my own group as well with DJ Azul and another MC and producer called J7. And we basically started making music. And this was our inspiration, our groundation, our foundation, you know. People like Black Noise who were also speaking out against these things. Like, it seemed like hip hop was the only movement at the time that said anything to the youth, that were directly actually speaking to the hearts of the youth. And for me, that was awesome, man. I just love that. I was like, yeah, you're speaking it in a language that we understand, that we can relate to. You're speaking about topics that we can relate to, the music, the dance, the entire culture. Even, I mean, on the walls, the graph art that was there, the writers did their utmost best to speak out in their own form, in their own way, against what was happening at the time. And just the rebellistic feel, I should say, of the music itself drew me in. And I was like, yeah, this is what I want to do. I want to be an MC. But at the same time, I also felt the energy of the music. That is why I personally also produce music, and I encourage other females to do that as well, other sisters to also not just be MCs, not just be vocalists or DJs or graph writers or breakdancers like my sister over here, Ambi. Big up my sis. I love what you're doing, man. You're a true inspiration. But, you know, to also, you know, you have your producers in the background who are not necessarily seen. Most of the producers, when they step out, they become DJs, of course. But then you have the people, you know, like grinding in the studio, and you don't know necessarily about them. So that, and also, of course, that's one of the other things that I'm very interested in doing in hip hop culture, is to elevate women. When I stepped in, and my first actually stepped in and stepped out into the public with what I was doing was just, you know, there was this matinee, hip hop matinee. And basically what happened was they were having a competition, so a freestyle competition. And I actually won the competition, but I could count on one hand how many sisters were doing this, and the rest were all dudes, were all guys. And I saw there's an imbalance here. Some things I don't like what I'm seeing, you know. I couldn't put it into words. I couldn't actually, as such a young person, find the words, or in a kind of real, I don't know how to say it, but basically there was just something wrong with the picture. And I was like, wow, okay, I need to do this, because hip hop needs a female voice. We speak in a different way, from a different perspective to what a guy does. And yeah, that's why Goddessa was formed later on as well. And it came out of the need of, you know, just inspiring other women to step up and say their piece, speak in their own voice without being criticized. And if there's criticism, to do it anyway. Be bold and be courageous and just do it, you know. Because hip hop was getting rowdy in South Africa at the time, man. Like, having a lot of guys on the scene, it became quite disrespectful. Like my brother Eli Efi was also saying, that, you know, women started being, you know, the images in the 90s of women, it was very derogative and it was very negative. And we thought, okay, somebody's gonna stand up and say, no, we don't like this. This is what hip hop is. It's about all 5 elements, the knowledge of self element as well. And the positive side of things, not, you know, taking all of your clothes off and then, you know, showing all your assets everywhere and that's it. And talking about throw your rollie in the sky and driving your Beamer, no. But from a female perspective, to show the other side of things, you know. So that's basically what drew me to hip hop and why I still continue to do it today.
Absolutely. Msia can take it from here, but and she knows much more about this because she writes about African hip hop and women, especially in hip hop. But I just need to say that there's a lot of women in South African hip hop. I think quite. I mean, I'm not saying that there are more women than men, but there are a lot of great women. And I would say that probably 100% of them would cite Goddessa as one of their inspirations. I certainly know a few of them who do look up to Goddessa and the legacy that was left there. So thank you so much. Msia.
Thank you. I would, yes, echo that sentiment about Goddessa. Of the women artists I've interviewed out of South Africa, I think all of them have cited Goddessa as kind of one of their influences. So I think that's, yeah, important to note. Okay, so I'm going to start with Kapi One, who is an Argentinian living in Barcelona, where he was involved in pioneering hip hop culture there. He started out as a b-boy and moved into graffiti and DJing, so kind of moving around the different elements of hip hop, as well as video production. So, you know, like the others, would you kind of tell us a little bit about your experience and your relationship with hip hop and getting into hip hop?
Yes, hello. Yes, as you say, I was born in Argentina. And I came in the early 70s, like in 72, when I was 1 year old. I came to Spain like many other artist-related immigrants, because the political situation there. And then I was just jumping from one city to another, little town, you know. I was not really from one place until I landed in Barcelona, like in the early 80s, like a couple of years before hip hop came to Europe, no? Like in 81, I was already in Barcelona. And then I felt really alone in that time. Like it was very hard for me to adapt to a city like that in Spain, where everything was dangerous. And somehow now, with the perspective, I see that Barcelona similar to what I can see now in documentaries about some part of the Bronx and things that where hip hop were born, no? And what happens is that breaking came to Europe like in '84, like big massive moment, because of course there was like few things before, but 84 was the year. I think everybody agrees that with the movies. And then I was just engaged with that and started to dance and forget about everything else, like the school and everything. And then I realized behind the hip hop, the breaking, there was some kind of other things, like the culture, no, like the background with the graffiti, the music, everything was very interesting for me. And as soon as I grew up, I could manage other things, like start to write, and then start to buy records and DJ and playing with the, turntables of my father, like all the original DJs did. And this is basically what happens to me. I really get engaged with all the elements and the creativity of it. And even there was another thing that came natural on me, which was document everything, to keep the documents, to look for it, try to understand why the things we are doing are done by that, and then to learn how, and keep photos, start to write letters here, there. I remember when graffiti magazines started, then I started my own graffiti magazine in the late 80s, early 90s. Then this thing put me in other paths, like doing business with graffiti and music, and start to produce also, and all crazy things that makes me like pioneer nowadays, no? Like I was starting things that now are big. And like happens also with the breaking. I stopped to dance in the middle 80s, like in Barcelona, everybody stops like in 86. And then I started to dance again, like in 91, 92, when I start to make trips around Europe, and I visit Germany, and I saw Storm and other pioneers from there dancing still, and say, okay, why we cannot do it again? And then we started to dance again, and things happened, and I was involved in the first breakdance crew from the 90s in Spain that start to do like professional things. We were to Battle of the Year, we represent Spain here, there, and it was crazy. I was 25 and I was like tripping around the world dancing and painting graffiti, and being involved in things like Montana Colors. To those that don't know what it is, this is the bigger company in the world that make spray cans, and they made all the cans here around my home. It's a place that I helped to build somehow, and that's it. After that, many things happen. Of course, we can develop this in other conversations.
Thank you. And then we have Zear, who also represents Argentina. A lot of Latin America representation today. So we also have Zear, who represents Argentina. He grew up in New York, where he became involved in the graffiti scene there in the early 80s. He remains active in the graffiti scenes in both the US and Argentina. Zear, could you also talk about your experiences and kind of early relationships with hip hop?
Yeah, I just wanted to start off saying thanks for having me on this panel, because for real, it's like, it's crazy being here, because I don't really do these things. I'm not that type of guy, but I wanted to do this because I wanted Latin America and Argentina to be recognized as part of the hip hop history. I've been back in Argentina since '92, so my English is probably like a little off. But just to kick it off, I was born in Argentina in 1967, and at the age of 2, my aunt was living in New York City, and she was getting married, and she wanted her mother, my grandmother, to go to the wedding. And my parents, my mother and father, were fighting a lot. They were going through rough times, and they were really like physical fights and stuff like that. This is what I was told. So my grandmother didn't want to leave me because she used to live with my father. She didn't want to leave me in that, you know what I mean, type of environment. So she took me with her. And when we got to New York, like a month later, after I was in New York, I was only 2 years old, and my mother and father had a fight. Police were called. It got really crazy. So my aunt decided to not send me back, and she wanted me to stay in New York with my grandmother. She didn't want us going back to that craziness. You know what I mean? She didn't want me going back as a kid and going between my mother and father fighting to who's gonna get me. So, like, I grew up without a mother and father, but my aunt was really my mother and father because she did everything for me. She went through hell with me because I was really wild. You know, I was in and out of jail, and she was always there for me. You know what I mean? She had her son, my cousin, that was the same age. I'm 3 months older than him. I was born in September. He was born in December. And he was a nerd. You know what I mean? He works for Google now. He's like an important person in Google. He never gave her a problem. You know what I mean? He was always a good kid. He never went to a party. He never went to a club. And I made her go through hell. So that was like, you know what I mean? That's like the crazy thing that's what I love about her, that she really had me like a son instead of like her nephew. And I just like, at the age of 8, I used to go to PS 111 in Midtown. I grew up in Midtown Manhattan, Hell's Kitchen. And I used to go to PS 111 public school. And on my way to school, which was like 7 blocks away from my house, I used to just read the tags on the way to the school or on the wall. And we had a crew that was in Midtown that was called RCNY. And they were up all over the place. So I was like, damn, I want to see my name like that. So I started like, you know what I mean, just instead of doing schoolwork, I was just tagging in my books. I was trying to find my name, trying to find letters. And then when I came up with Zear, I wanted it all over. I wanted everybody, the same way I was reading tags, I wanted people to read my tag. And then like going on, we had, in the crew RCNY, we had this friend from the neighborhood. His name is DJ Doc. He was actually KRS-One's DJ in BDP. He's on the I Am Still Number One. DJ Doc, you know, is down with us. So we really were linked to like real school music, and like the sister was saying, he was a DJ, but he was also a producer. He produced EPMD, Eric B. and Rakim. He has a catalog so crazy, but he's underrated. He's never got really the flowers he should have because he's been through a lot, you know what I mean? And he really put us on to music. And then the next step was like at the age of 13, I was playing stickball, you know what I mean, the street, which was normal back then, you know what I mean? And there was a carpet laying company that was next to my building, and they needed help. And since I was big as a kid, the owner of the company asked me if I wanted to help out. And I told them, ask my aunt. She said, okay, as long as you bring them back, you know what I mean, safe. And so I went with them, and they had all their clientele. They were called Harlem's Best. So they had all their clientele in Harlem and the Bronx. And I went in the van with them, and I was 13. We went on the highway, and I just started seeing rooftops, graffitis all over the place. You know, we did jobs in Bronx River projects. Man, I'm talking about crazy places where actually one day we were doing a job there, and we took time to eat lunch, and Bambaataa was spinning, you know what I mean, in the community center in Bronx River. And I could only stay a little bit because I got to go back to work. So that was like another eye opener, like another push more into hip hop. And every time we finished a job, I had to go to the top floor of every building and go down the stairs and throw flyers for the carpet laying company under the doors. So while I used to go down, I used to just tag the stairways in all the buildings I ever went into. So that was like, I was getting up here, I was getting up there, and since I was traveling a lot, and that was like a big change for me. But what really made me go crazy was one day the van didn't work, so we had to take the subway to work. So we had to go to the Bronx in the subway. And I remember just sitting at the age of 13, sitting inside the subway and just reading all the tags on the way. We got to this, it was like an hour ride, say, between combination and everything. And the owner of the company was telling me, we got to get off. And it felt like 5 minutes to me because I was too busy reading everything. And that was like the part was I was like, I want to hit trains. I want to get to trains. I want to get to that level. Then the next thing, I used to go to Chelsea High School, which is near Canal Street in New York, right? And I never liked it because it was like an all boys school at first. And it had like 5 girls in the school. So it was kind of boring, you know what I mean? It was like, I used to just go half a day. At 12 o'clock, I would go to lunch. And at 12:30, when we had a half an hour break to go outside, you could smoke a cigarette and everything. At 1 o'clock, you had to come back. I never came back. I always broke like the rest of the afternoon. I would go to Canal Street. I would go to Pearl Art Store and just rack markers. I mean, rack is stealing. I used to just steal markers, designer markers and everything. And then I would just hide them in a paper bag, like somewhere, and then go into another store and just grab more stuff. And I'd always come home with a bag full of markers. And one day I actually skipped school and I was gonna take a tag on these black doors that were all tagged with a white Pentel marker, and the door opened and I hid the marker real quick. And the guy that was coming out told me, you going in? And I was like, yeah, because I was scared. I didn't know who he was or if I was gonna get in trouble. So I just went inside. And when I went inside, I just saw graffiti all over the place. I was actually in Henry Chalfant's studio that he had in that area. You know what I mean? And I didn't know it was Henry Chalfant. I didn't even know who Henry Chalfant was. There was a group of writers in there, and one came up to me and he asked me, you write? And I said, yeah, Zear. And I said, you write? He said, Kano, legendary Kano, you know what I mean? Rocksteady Crew, he's a legend, you know what I mean? And he told me, how'd you know about this place? And I was like, what place? Because I didn't know where I was. He's like, Henry's. I'm like, who's Henry? He was like, Henry Chalfant. I'm like, I don't know who he is. He's like, oh man. He took me to the corner and Zephyr, Revolt, a couple of other writers were there. And he was like, yo, this dude writes and he doesn't know he's in Henry's. He don't know who Henry's is. They started laughing and they started laughing and it was just so funny, but it's like that day changed my life because I actually quit school. The next day, that day I got to talk to Henry. He was like, you could look through the books, you could look all you want, just don't touch the canvases. Please, how do you call it, keep everything neat. And I was like, yeah, no problem. He's like, if you want to come every day to hang out, you can. Just take care of the stuff, please. And I was okay. Next day, I was there at 9 in the morning. I never went back to school. I used to leave my house like I was going to school. I would leave my house with my book bag, and I would hide my book bag in the backyard of the 5-story building we lived in Midtown. And I would just go on the subway like I'm going to school, and I would go to Henry's. And I would just hang out there every day. And I got cool with Kano, and we started going to Roxy's together. You know what I mean? Kano actually passed me the first, I thought it was joint in Roxy's, and it was dust. And that was like the craziest day of my life because my head was spinning. I didn't know where I was. I didn't know who anybody was. My head was like really, I was like, this ain't weed. He was like, nah, B, that's dust. I was like, no, never again. I was like, yo, that's it. So we started hanging out a lot in Roxy's, and that's where I started meeting like you know what I mean? All the legends in those era, Rocksteady crew, you know what I mean? Everybody that was like part of the hip hop in those times. And then like from there on, one day I was painting at the 59th Street pool in Amsterdam, which is like the border between Midtown and Amsterdam. And like 2 blocks up is the Amsterdam projects. Well, I was doing a graffiti at night with my boy P1 from Midtown. And the pool is actually like in between a block. You got fences on each side of the street. So you had to climb over the fence to get in the pool. So we were doing the wall and these kids showed up. It was Risk, FC, Cinch, Lose, a couple more writers. And like we presented ourselves and we got, Risk started doing some characters, I did letters. We were having such a good time that we didn't notice that there was a cop car on each side of the fence waiting for us to come out. And when we finished, there was like no escape because you had to go out one way or the other. So we got arrested that night. We spent the night in jail, and that's where I got to be cool with Risk. He presented me the next day to West One, that was the FC president, legendary West. You know, big shout out to the FC family. And West put me down with FC, and then like a little bit further on, he gave me power in FC. And then we started like doing trains. That was like, forget it. It was like, it was so different back then because nowadays the kids, they go to the store with their mom's credit card, they buy cans, they buy special caps for thin, fat, whatever. And, or they could order it online and have it delivered to their house. You know what I mean? Back then we used to have to, if we wanted to go painting Friday night, the trains, we had to go from Monday to Thursday, hardware stores, start stealing cans, buy 1 can, steal 10. We had to go to like supermarkets and take the caps off of all the cleaning supplies and stuff like that, go back home and try them out. And well, we got a fat cap. We got to remember from where we got it. So we go back and we'll take all the caps off of that brand. Like the foam that cleaned the oven cleaning foam, that was fat caps for us back in the days. So you had to go through a whole like crazy mission just to get the cans, the caps ready for that, you know what I mean? For that trip. It ain't that easy how they have it nowadays. You know what I mean? It's totally changed. The graffiti world is totally different. They got it too easy nowadays. People getting fame, drawing a piece in the backyard, they go over it weekly and they post it on Instagram and everybody's, you know what I mean? They're getting likes, but it's the same wall in their backyard. Nobody knows it's the same wall, but you could actually tell. So it's like, it's that easy to get fame nowadays. Back then you had to really like, you know what I mean? Go through a lot. You could get arrested, you could get robbed, you could get stabbed, you could get shot, you could get beat. You know, it's a lot of things are different. You know what I mean? The world has changed a lot, but like, that's what hip hop was about. Then Monday morning, we would meet up on 125th Street, the one line Harlem Station, to take flicks of the trains. When the trains pulled up of the pieces we did, we had one person waiting on that side of the platform to pull the emergency brake. So we had 5 minutes to take flicks. And it was all camera, no 1,000 selfie flicks. Then you pick the one you like, you know what I mean? You had a Kodak camera and you had a roll of 24 or 36 flicks, and you had to pray that at least 10 would come out good. And it used to cost a lot of money to develop photos too, you know what I mean? So it's totally different. The world changed a lot. And skipping from there on, when the train era kind of died in 86, 87, I always went to clubs, rooftop and everything, but when the train thing died, I was like, I lived 3 blocks away from Latin Quarters, so I was always in there. Like Union Square, Palladium, Roseland. I saw New Edition when they did Amateur Night in Roseland before they even got to be famous, you know what I mean? Like Biz Markie on Amateur Night before he got to be famous, TJ Swan. So those were moments that like, you know what I mean? That really opens your heart and you say, wow, look at all this that I'm going through, you know what I mean? It's like everybody thinks that, I'm not saying you don't gotta go to school, but I'm talking about, I think I took the right choice because I love my life. I live off of graffiti. I'm not rich. I don't have a mansion, this and that, but I travel. I do what I love. You know what I mean? My son, he's a graffiti artist. I paint with him walls. That's like the best pleasure you can have, looking to your right and seeing your son painting with you. You know what I mean? He's a great tattoo artist now, so he's 25. My other son's a DJ. He's 26. So it's like, I mean, you can't get no better than that. I mean, I don't want no Dr. Plaque on my wall. You know what I mean? That wasn't for me. You know what I mean? I think I had like a special life, because if I would have stayed in Argentina, I would have probably been a bus driver. You know what I mean? I wouldn't even know anything about hip hop. I would probably just hear it on the radio and that's it. You know what I mean? So it's like, I've been blessed with the life I have. I'm 53 years old, I'm still painting. I'm on vacation now, and I took 2 weeks off because Buenos Aires is still on phase 1 from the COVID. So we're really on lockdown. So I was getting like stressed out because I work at home and you can't go 5 blocks away from your house. So you get caught, you get arrested. So I was getting like to the point that I was having a mental breakdown. I was like getting crazy. I would sneak out and paint. I was doing that, but it was like too risky, and I wanted like just to relax. Like I just wanted mountains and just breathe air without, you know what I mean, a mask on and everything. So I came out to Salta, which is up north in Argentina, and it's a hot place. But the week that I've been here, it's been raining every day. So the sun just came out today, so I got a week left, so I'm gonna enjoy, and I'm gonna try to at least get 2 graffitis in before I leave. And that's all I can say. I'm just honored to be here. You know what I mean? Honored to be part of this, and really, I really miss all my friends in New York because I can't go to a bar and have a beer with my friends here because we can't talk about the old days because they weren't there with me in the old days. So I'm glad for what's up because I talked to a lot of friends from all over the world, mostly that were from New York that are now living in Australia, London, Germany, Brazil, you know what I mean? Not everybody stayed in New York. So that's the good thing, you know what I mean? The social media keeps you updated on your friends and everything. So all I gotta say is, man, I think I'm blessed. I'm really grateful that I left school and how everything went falling into place. You know what I mean? So I don't think too many people had that opportunity. And I really, like I said, my aunt was my mother and father because she went through hell for me. You know what I mean? She went through hell for me, and she didn't even go through that for her son. So it's like I've been blessed, and I'm really blessed to be on here with all of y'all. Thanks for having me. I didn't want to talk that much because I'm really shy at one point, but I really wanted to like tell you how much hip hop is in my life.
Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. A lot of history there. We really appreciate it. So we definitely wanted to kind of close with the introductions with MC Sha-Rock. She, you know, so many people have kind of touched on her importance and significance. I feel like she doesn't need an introduction, but for those who kind of don't know the story, MC Sha-Rock is one of the pioneers of hip hop culture. So a lot of us know the names like DJ Kool Herc, Grandmaster Flash, and a lot of these names are kind of celebrated in hip hop culture. We hear these names again and again. But MC Sha-Rock, you know, started off, was like there in the beginning. Started off as a B-girl and was the first female MC. Now we can kind of talk about why we don't hear her name more. I mean, that's kind of a whole different discussion, but she played an important role in the growth of the culture that we all celebrate, the culture that was spread across the world. And so I think it was really important as we ask people kind of their experiences and how they got into hip hop culture, as someone who was there starting hip hop culture, I think I want to, ask what your views are on kind of the growth of hip hop culture and kind of where hip hop culture is gone from your perspective as somebody who was there at the beginning of it.
Okay, so let me first thank you for the introduction. And you said that I don't need to introduce you, but yes, I do. But let me tell you about who Sha-Rock is for everybody that don't know. For all you educators, for all you pioneers, for all you legends, for all you innovators that's on this panel, I want to say shout out to y'all, because in the Bronx, it was burning. The buildings were burning. You go to, different blocks, everything looked like World War II, right? They say the Bronx was burning. I say we was resilient. Why was we resilient? Because we created a multi-billion-dollar business that's global now. You understand what I'm saying? And it's not to take anything from anybody around the world and what happened, but this is what happened back in the Bronx. In 1976, although you heard a DJ Kool Herc, on one side, or Mario, or Disco King Mario on one side, and you had African Bambaataa, and then you had my DJ Breakout and Baron, and you had Grand Wizard, Grandmaster Flash, and then you had Theodore. They don't tell you the whole story of the innovators who helped push this story together. Why? You ask me why my name is never mentioned, because it's the educators that speak about hip hop culture that don't take the time to do their research. What some of them do, and not all do, even for all of even for y'all in your prospective countries. They will just take from people's story, make their own stories, doing the work. The educators, the commentators, people who say that they are hip hop historians, y'all should be doing the work. And I'm not saying this panel, but I'm just saying they should be doing the work to find out what really happened, what went down. Why they don't mention Sha-Rock? Because they haven't taken the time to do the work. The information is there. The information is on the internet. If you go and you look up Sha-Rock and who I am the first female MC of hip hop culture. I am the first female MC that had a record deal, authentic female MC that had a record deal. That didn't start in 1979, although I had a song in 1979 when records just came out. I was on the streets of the Bronx prior to 1979, moving the culture forward. And I say that to say this. I'm the first female MC, a part of an all-male group. I'm the first female MC that helped put the MC format forward. Now, although you had MCs like the disco MCs that would rhyme, I was a part of a group, the first organized, synchronized group that had their own security, that had the sound system, the baddest sound system in New York City, because we learned from Disco King Mario and we learned from DJ Kool Herc. So what we did was we made sure that my voice as a female, along with the Funky Four, would carry but 10 blocks down. So when they hear me, they can hear the highs, they can hear the lows, they can hear everything that would express, me as a woman, as an MC. I was a part of a group that helped created the first MC rap battles. Those MC rap battles started with MC Sha-Rock and the Funky Four and the Furious Four MCs, which later became Grandmaster Flash and the Furious Five MCs. I'm a part of a culture that helped to push this culture forward, that when it came to graffiti. Now I heard, my friend earlier talking about hip hop culture, and he was a part of hip hop culture, before it was hip hop culture. But what people don't tend to tell you is that all the elements of hip hop culture was already there. Even though we didn't call it hip hop culture, the elements were still rocking in New York City. It's just certain years, like 78 was the major year when you had all the elements of the culture coming together. The MCs, the DJs, the B-boys, knowledge, graffiti. All of those elements was coming together in 78, really, even though it was going on like in 73, or some people say 71 or 74, 75, all the elements were beginning to really come together in 1978. And it wasn't until African Bambaataa and the movie started coming out, then they started to call it hip hop culture, when Bam really took it around the world in the 80s, and then they put a name to it, although we were rhyming to the hip hop, and you don't stop in our rhymes prior to the 80s, prior when the MCs were out. So my thing is that this is why you don't hear about it, because the educators and people that say they're historian don't take the time to do the work. I have video footage, I have flyers, I have word of mouth. I have all of these things in Cornell University, in Smithsonian Institute, that they can see in 1978 and all of these years that Sha-Rock, as the first female MC and a founding member of hip hop culture and the MC culture, I was right there on the ground floor. But nevertheless, they don't speak about women, and they don't let everybody know that women was on the front line. I was there helping, stealing electricity to hook up to, the light posts. You know what I'm saying? I was carrying the crates. I was influential to both men and females. You will hear Run DMC talk about it. You will hear Common talk about it. You will hear Grandmaster Flash talk about it. But educators don't do their job to inform and inform right. They just say, okay, well, I'm celebrating hip hop culture. But if you're teaching, you gotta tell the truth. You gotta do your research. You can't take the information just from somebody else's story. You got, okay, look, this is fact. You cannot always believe what everybody say, because even for y'all, this is my story, but y'all around the world, who y'all are legends and y'all are pioneers and y'all are innovators and motivators, you have to make sure that your stories are told the correct and right way, because if not, all that you have done will go to waste. All that you have done will be wiped out of everything that you have accomplished. So if they say you bragging, you say, well, hell yes, I am. Because you know why? If you don't speak up for what you have accomplished and what you have did as pioneers in your respective countries, you will be eliminated. Trust me when I tell you. So now I be in their face and I come with proof, and y'all should too. And y'all should make sure that y'all hold everybody accountable who's telling hip hop culture stories, and say, look, you're not telling it right. Because one thing I know for sure is that a lot of people like to come to me and they like to say, okay, with Sha-Rock, what about hip hop? Is hip hop dead? You know what I say to them? Hell no, it ain't dead. You know why? Because if you are celebrating all elements of the culture, the B-boy, the B-girl, graffiti, the DJ, the MC, knowledge, if you're in fashion is very important. So if you're celebrating all the elements of the culture, the thing is that one thing that they forget is that they want to say rap culture and MC culture is everything that hip hop represents. And it's not. It is just one element of the culture. And this is where we all get confused at.
Thank you.
Not saying we, not saying y'all, not saying some people, they want to clash rap music and say, well, I don't like the way rap is going because, you may have this female doing this and they're talking about guns, boop, 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 pop up the guns and all that stuff. That's just a part of one element of the culture. So when we see DJ rap battles and we see MC rap battles and we see graffiti that's going on around the world and we see, the B girl and the B girl, the culture is live and well, but we must make sure that we inform them that rap is just one element. And so if you want to, go in and critique rap element, well, hell, even with women way before us was talking crazy. Women way before us was talking raunchy. You understand what I'm saying? But this is the thing though. People within rap culture, or let's say the hip hop culture, you got to understand that people are allowed to express themselves the way that they want to. Now, whether or not it's right or wrong, they're going to have to answer to it. But it's us as educators to make sure that we inform as pioneers or legends or innovators to say, listen, you know what I'm saying? This is what the original rap culture is about. Peace, unity, having fun. You know what I'm saying? Because I came from the era where I had to walk over dead bodies. It wasn't always like that. I came from an era where we had the first security crew that would help make sure that we were covered, that when they came into our parties, that nobody was going to get shot, nobody was going to get killed. This is what we made sure that it happened during the culture of the early years of the original culture of hip hop. We sure that everybody that was inside was protected from all the negativity that was going outside. So we hired our own security. We hired our own hype girls. I'm talking about my group, the brothers that's going to Funky Four and DJ Breaker, DJ Baron. We hired our own security to get away from all the negative, to get away from all the shooting and the killings that was going outside of us in the Bronx. You understand what I'm saying? So we must make sure that we educate what the culture really is. How can we move forward and really just tell every, you know, all the up and coming, you know, MCs, the DJs and everything, and inform them of the original culture of hip hop and what it means. That's the only way that you're going to stop all the madness, is to keep the truth alive. Instead of suppressing the truth, you got to keep it alive and you got to walk the walk. That's all I got to say, y'all. But I love y'all, and make sure that if you out there educating, you out there educating on them elements, including fashion, including what really went down, or how your perspective areas in Argentina or Brazil or Spain or wherever you come, shine a light on them and make sure that y'all tell them what the original hip hop culture is about: peace, unity, and having fun.
Thank you for that. So lot of history. So we want to kind of talk, have Q&A and really kind of have some questions that are for everyone. So I'm going to hand it over to Mikko because he has some questions for everyone.
Yeah, absolutely. You really are amazing panel. I mean, what stories we've been having, and we need to move maybe a little bit quicker forward, but I mean, these have really been really amazing. And let me say that for Sha-Rock is that I was just listening to, like, preparing for this and all that, and I was listening to a lot of interviews and things like that, how DMC from Run DMC was saying how he basically was so impressed by your rapping style that he was copying it almost like directly, your style from a tape that he had heard. And Chuck D was saying that you actually gave Debbie Harry even the confidence to do what she was doing in the pop world by just your mere presence. So while we really need to make sure that the real stories are told, fortunately, those people who are in the know, who know what's happening, also make sure that they mention your name, and rightly so. Great to have all of you actually here. It's really great. I'm very interested. Yeah, we moving forward, and I'm really interested always in the aesthetics of hip hop, whether it's in all the different elements, graffiti, dancing, also, I don't know, maybe a little bit less with DJing, but also in DJing, and also of course in rapping and the music itself, sampling sounds and all those things. Now we were hearing a lot from the original sources from like graffiti and how the rapping came from Bronx and all that, but I'm also very interested in this global reach and the whole of that a layer of this conversation. Now, of course, early on when hip hop was adopted, a lot of countries were kind of replicating it. They were taking it as it was. They were copying the accent from America. They were using the slang and all that. And it took a while before people in different countries, even sort of had the courage to use their own accent. We have stories from United Kingdom, of course, many anecdotes of how it was London Posse who were the first ones to start using the British accent that now seems very popular, but at the early days, the London MCs and MCs from Nottingham and all these other cities in UK were also copying the American accent. But there we are kind of having this balance. How much of it you are taking from, say, New York or from the United States, and how much you adding your own aesthetic from where you're coming from. And I was thinking that we could start maybe with Eli Efi a little bit, because from Brazil of course has a huge like incredible culture musically, but also when it comes to breakdancing, capoeira is like it's like there's like inevitable connections. They might be there, but also there might also be some visual aesthetics that are part of graffiti and so on and so forth. How would you describe that? How much of the Brazilian hip hop early on and or now, how much of it is Brazilian and how much of it is the sort of like the thing that was coming from New York early on?
It's funny you say that, because this thing affects a lot. I think everybody want to be like hip hop in the United States, right? In New York, or LA. So we dress like the people, you try to imitate it, right? But the good thing from Brazil, we created a lot of groups, a lot of, the hip hop culture in Brazil. They adapted elements from Brazil, like capoeira, right? Like capoeira introduced something else in the music, like in a mix like a samba. Sometimes they try to create your own identity. Some groups, some people try to, get your own. There's a Brazilian hip hop. You know what I'm saying? And my experience before was like that too. You try to be unique. You try to create a, wild style. The best way to people better understand ourselves. What are we talking about in this time? So that's was a more important thing develop in that time to make sure they know, we're Brazilian. You know what I'm saying? Because in our country, because have a different style, the music, whatever, we are discriminated to because we import something else and to our country and start doing it. People say, oh, this people from North America. They try to disrespect us because we're not doing samba. It's a very popular culture in Brazil, right? It was a hard time to us because as a black people getting shocked because we were doing hip hop. But they notified the hip hop started, getting big in the community, and the people start, following us, doing, being part of the culture, like as a b-boy, as a DJ, as a graffiti art. They was in shock. They start seeing the message was very strong, and the people start to stand up for, everything happened in the community. They look at us like, whoa, this thing is like, the message, the style, the way they doing, they got, people, respond that. So that's where I feel like, the moment you try, you dedicate and create our own hip hop, our way to do things in Brazil, there's like separated the things that people try. Oh, you try to imitate the people, in North America, do like the, people from the New York or whatever. But the influence into especially in the beginning of the 90s, it was like, everybody want to be like a BDP, like a publican, NWA, everybody like try to, but it's hard. You can't use the same slang. You can't adapt it. So in Brazil, happen one thing, like here back in the day, everybody imitated or people doing in New York, right? Or actually, I'm wrong. All this slang thing, but in Brazil, the same thing. São Paulo, my city, is a big city. It's a mecca for hip hop. São Paulo. Everybody outside of São Paulo in Brazil try to be like us in São Paulo, but they have a different, accent. Outside São Paulo, you have one. Bahia, another one, but everybody imitated, exactly São Paulo was doing. So, I don't know if it's a bad or good, because then the day was more important as the way that the message or the culture, like Sha-Rock say, what I'm saying, it's affected the community. And I'm so proud to be in part of this thing, building, our history in Brazil, especially for Black people. Everybody stand up. Hip hop in Brazil was the best thing happening in the end of the 80s to now. You know what I'm saying? My Black people community, the Black people community in Brazil, we stand up. It's beautiful to see right now. How much love they put in himself, how much love he tried to, better understand the way he keep the community functional. You know what I'm saying? So I don't know if I answer your question, but I feel like, I'm so glad you have the middle coming from this country. I'm in the Bronx right now, New York, but I'm so glad because give it hope to us, create and develop our own thing to do. The thing that I don't respect, I don't like, I don't understand right now and I moved to New York in 2005. I did a couple of things. I did a couple of shows right here. And I heard some people say, I asked people, why how much you know about hip hop in Brazil? I don't know nothing about Brazil. I don't speak Portuguese. That's weird because if you take out, outside this country, you just think about United States, hip hop is not supposed to be so strong the way hip hop was. You know what I'm saying? The hip hop outside, I'm saying not in general. I'm not saying one of the music. I say in general. If you not look outside this country, the people, the way the people love, the way the people sacrifice, right now you have Instagram, you have all this social media, but back in the day, they don't have a Facebook, back then they don't have nothing there. So the people pay a lot of money for having records. The people pay, that time pay a lot of, do a lot of sacrifice, like my brother say right here. You go to somewhere, steal some stuff, whatever you put in a culture. That's happen the same way. You know what I'm saying? While the people don't, appreciate or take a time to try to listen, because I was listening publicly back in the day. I don't know shit. I'm sorry, excuse my line. I don't know shit about English. I don't know 1, 2, 3. I can count 1, 2, 3 that time. But I feel it. Music is a feeling. You know what I'm saying? Music is about feeling. You know what I'm saying? So
absolutely. Absolutely. Sorry, I really hate to be that guy that I have to be right now. We have now been at this for 1.5 hours for my allocated 2 hours, and we're only getting started.
Can I add something quickly to his point and to your answer? One of the things people must understand about this country, it doesn't appreciate its own, especially if it's the minority class, right? And one of the things that is so unique about hip hop culture is that that class recognized itself and created identity. And when we think about hip hop culture globally, and I've been to so many countries, including Brazil, which I loved, and Rio, and I have good friends, those gemios out there. I've been to the Middle East. I've been throughout Europe and certain places in South America. And, it's interesting because America has this thing as a New Yorican, and as a let's just frame it like this, as a multicultural city, it's so ignorant about adopting language. And then of course, as we assimilate, especially foreign speakers, language speakers, we assimilate into the English language, right? And we don't appreciate the rhythms, the sounds, and the tastes of the rest of the world around us, especially in a diverse city like New York, where you're next to Jamaicans and Dominicans and Cubans and Jews and Italians and so on. And so what I found over the years as I've traveled was that people around the world knew Sha-Rock more so than we did, right? Like you can't, it's so crazy. I can go to so many countries and they know more about, ground zero first gen than we do. In fact, they study it, right? And they build around it. And what's so sad is that well, now let me reframe that, because there's a course correction because things like this happen, but also you have places like the Universal Hip Hop Museum, which is opening. We opened the Museum of Graffiti here in Miami to help people tell their stories, right? And correct. One of the things I always say, the one nice thing about history, it's always correcting itself. And so by having Sha-Rock on here and correcting history, that proves the point that it's never too late to course correct, right? And more importantly, that we have a tremendous amount of power now that we didn't have before, in terms of telling our story and advancing our story through the world, but also celebrating the rest of people's stories, like you're a pioneer in your countries and others. And I just had Dizzy One, a young graffiti girl, the first graffiti legend pioneer of India. And that was fascinating. She's a young girl. She's just been in the game like yesterday type of thing, but she did something rather important, right? And so we have to highlight that. So I think in terms of where we are in kind of expecting, and I have to kind of turn this toward this last point to industry. And we have to separate ourselves from industry, right? Because the industry won't care or promote diversity, right? It's all grassroots. That's how it happens, right? And thankfully that, yeah, you know, like there has been success in certain industries that have helped shape cultural opinion and social opinions and stuff like that. It's always going to be from the grassroots. The power of it is in the grassroots. It's not in the industry, because now we have the same tools as the industry. This is case in point. YouTube, this, and on you go, right? And so I don't look at hip hop as divided or as weak and as lost as many do. I think every generation has to adapt to all those things, as I mentioned before, the tools and the expression and all the politics that are in their face, and they'll make it their own. But what we can't do is just leave it up to them, as the grown-up people in the room, is to leave it up to them to dictate what is history, right? And what is and how we teach that history. We can't do that. We have to guide them and by example. And so, not to take up that much time, but I think it's so important that we ourselves as grown-ups understand the responsibility and power we have in our hand right now. Like when you leave this room, you know, you go out to the community and you put that to work. And so not just as community work, but also as business.
Yeah.
Use hip hop as business. Embrace it and drive it through the fucking roof as a business. Why not? And again, that has nothing to do with exploiting culture. It's about advancing culture and advancing yourself. And I'm all for that. So I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, I just want to jump in there as well. Is my mic on? Is this thing on? Yeah.
Yes.
It's on. Yeah, I mean, just to touch on that point that Carlos was making about, you know, and to also tie it into the whole global reach that it has, the internet. Oh my gosh, I just last year started my own YouTube channel and am still discovering how powerful this tool is to spread the word. My goodness, people, if you are scared of using the technology, each and every one listening out there to this panel, use it. Don't be scared. Like I was before, I was completely not into being on camera. I was completely, I'm you know, the studio person that'll go on stage and stick my head into the cans and then just be there making beats, being behind the scenes. I'm not the upfront person, but you got to get over those fears and those
Absolutely.
insecurities to put yourself out there. And I think that is what keeps a lot of us back. And, you know, we're afraid to step out there because, you know, yeah, that's for somebody else, you know, it's not for me. I'm not that kind of personality. And that's how I felt as well. But the tools are there, use them. It's not about being fearful. You'll grow into it as you start stepping out. You'll make a lot of mistakes, like I still do sometimes. Even if your camera isn't all that good quality, it doesn't make a difference to the fact that you are out there doing it and getting used to doing it and growing in it and overcoming that insecurity, you know?
Yeah, EJ, if I could just add this, one of the things that's, and Sha, you know this to be true, one of the things that is really important about hip hop is the culture, is how it drives innovation, technical innovation, and industry innovation, from turntables to mixers to spray cans, cellular beepers, right?
Yeah.
We learn how to hustle with what we have and we know how to push them. We push those tools further, right?
Absolutely.
And here we are at a time where I say this and I scream this for many years because I've been at the forefront. I helped bring hip hop into technology, me and my brother, and we were the first pioneers in that space. And we were laughed out the room from all kinds of corporations and hip hop heads who didn't believe us. And here we are at an age, we're in the creative industrial age where we can make and build and program whatever we want.
Sheesh.
Absolutely.
Right?
Respect, my brother. Respect. Yeah,
Yes.
man. That's
And
how
now we
people
have the
today.
cryptocurrency. So what is hip hop going to do about the cryptocurrency space? And so I've been engaged in all of that. And
Instead of dropping just, rap verses, dropping bars, they drop some H bars, man. Like, oh my God. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
Ashcraft, here we go. But absolutely also that point that Carlos was making, just to quickly add on to that about industry and using these things. I mean, to be totally independent, because when I was coming up with Goddessa back in the day, we kind of proud ourselves on the fact that we were all female, but we were also thinkers. We were also analytical about things. We were also basically, reading contracts, making sure that we check them, triple check them, double check them, because we wanted our business to be in order. And we didn't want to be the slave of a record label. So we even turned down Gala Records, for instance, a deal that they had for us, because we knew that if we didn't take control of it, the business side of it, we would be in debt. We would be at the mercy of the record label, maybe shelved or something, put aside, because we weren't making as much money. So we took control of our business, and that's what we also need to do. I still strongly feel, and that's what I'm doing right now.
And I co-sign. I co-sign because if I had the knowledge that I knew today as a young teenager when I first signed my contract in 1979, I wouldn't be in a lawsuit today, still to this day, with Sugar Hill Records. You understand what I'm saying? Still, even though I won partial of the lawsuit, I'm still, after almost 40 years, still in a battle, a legal battle in court today. So it's very important that women understand, and I'm glad that you took the initiative to go that route. Because had my parents knew, had I knew at 79 when records dropped, I would have stayed into the rap game, but I had refused to allow anybody to take what I love in my heart and continue to pimp me. I wasn't going to do that. So I walked away. So continue to do what you got to do and bring forth to all women, all males. You got to understand them contracts. There's no way where people should still be getting into crazy contracts when there are people that was on the front line that were poster childs for getting jerked back in 79. There is no reason why you should still be getting jerked. No way.
My sister. Thank you for that, man. Yeah.
Yes.
Totally.
Guys, it's interesting for me. I've been doing these talks for a long time. Many who know me, I've done a lot of talks in a lot of areas of culture and politics, and the nuanced things that we're discussing about hip hop culture, and Sha, you said something earlier that I wanted to remind folks. You triggered something, because I grew up in the South Bronx.
That's what this panel is about. We trigger stuff, right, y'all? Go ahead, I'm sorry.
No, it's because it's important, right? That I grew up at like ground zero of the South Bronx, 139th Street, St. Anne's, Brook Avenue, right?
Oh yeah.
And as I've grown older, and I talk about this culture, a culture that's born out of trauma and fire and all these things. And I have to make this clear, because this is something new that happened and I processed late in life at the museum as I talk to people about the experience of the South Bronx and young kids. Because you see Martha Cooper's pictures of young children playing. And Sha, you remember how we used to play with, a milk crate became a basketball hoop. I mean, it goes on
the floor. Remember Skelsies and all that stuff that we used to play back in the days. Yeah.
And so the backdrop was, like, as she said, was like a war zone. And so I used to look at it and say that as well, but then something changed. I stepped back in front of these pictures, beautiful pictures of kids playing, imagining they're bartenders, car mechanics, flying birds, and so on and so forth. And I says, holy shit, we were victims. This was a crime against humanity.
It sure was.
I'll say that again. that was a crime against humanity.
Yeah.
So hip hop was born out of a crime against humanity. We didn't choose to be poor. And this is the same experience you'll have in Brazil. This is the same experience you'll have throughout the world, where poverty exists and this culture thrives. And this is the response to that, right? This is how we arm ourselves with our creativity and resources. But we shouldn't downplay that narrative that, you know, that it's just because you're Black, just because you're poor. No. There's a war being, and you know, placed upon
on
you.
humanity, right?
On humanity, and people could, and again, this is part of the story of America and many countries. And the beautiful thing is that we are able, in years later, and again, culture, we have, if you study culture, you know, this culture has, unlike any other culture, become the de facto culture of young people throughout the world. And now that we're seeing things like we were saying, the internet, museums, and assimilation, and now the Olympic Games for the breakers, and everyone has elevated the game, and it's getting more and more so. But there's something else that has happened. It's your voices, your political voices, your community voices, areas of health and politics and finance, and you know what I'm saying? So so the debate about like Little Yachty and this one, I don't give a fuck about that. You know, that's industry stuff.
Right.
That's the
but
industry.
You made a good point. It's just that everybody on this panel, the way to get, if you say you for hip hop culture and every elements that work for hip hop culture, is so many different ways that we can get involved. Political. Political is like the number one way you could get involved, because hip hop is very powerful, y'all. We are very powerful all over the world. And if we jump into the politics and help, you know, the young kids, guide them into what's going to work best for your country, what's going to work best for your country, put the people in power that's going to do right by humanity. That's where we need to start at. We can do all this other stuff, but what controls the world is politicians. If we get involved and putting those people in office to make sure that they do right by the people in your country, the people in the United States, or wherever you at, that is the key to being successful, and that is the key to bringing forth how hip hop can really be a voice for humanity. That's
and guys, let me just say this last point, because people who grow up poor and who feel stigmatized by it, and also people who are in the the social justice space, you know, some of them you often walk around with this trauma and this kind of sense of scarcity. And we have to change that and think of it, you know, in terms of enterprise and entrepreneurship. Social entrepreneurship is good. You do good for the community, you do good for your bottom line.
Yeah, and also just want to quickly add to what my sister Sha-Rock was saying there. Respect for those words, my sister, really inspiring. Is that, yeah, politically, that's a big one. Economically, of course, now we're talking about all around. And there's also the social healing that needs to happen.
Absolutely.
And what I have to say is like really respect as well from one of the pioneers in hip hop in South Africa, Emil XY. He has just written a book called Reconnect the String. And he is also, and basically what the book is about, I haven't personally read it myself. I'm still waiting for my copy.
Yes.
But the gist of it is, as far as I can understand, and is that, you know, there is a bigger culture within hip hop culture, and that it comes from something bigger than itself even. So he's connecting the string from New York City, from where it started with you, MC Sha-Rock, and bring it back to Africa.
Right,
but having said that, it also has to do with the fact, and what he is also doing right now is basically working in the community, has been doing it for a very, very long time.
Yes.
Going into schools, using hip hop culture to, influence the youth and to inspire them and to show them there is something better than what you have right here. There's something better than the gangsterism, the alcoholic parents that you grow up with, and the traumas and experiences, negative experiences that you are having as a kid right now, and that you think is your reality. There's something bigger than that. There's really something more powerful that you can harness to uplift yourself, and you can do that. There are tools to do that, and he's giving them that platform, or he is that platform to basically bring in others who can show and prove. We are the proof. We are the proof. We standing up saying, hey, it can be done. We've done it.
Absolutely.
Travel.
DJ, I have a question for you.
Yeah.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but
Absolutely.
I have an important question, right? And I want everyone to listen to this carefully. South Africa post-apartheid, right? I remember apartheid well when I was a young man. And, finally, South Africa has broken free from, let's just say as much as it has, from apartheid. America has what I call a passive-aggressive apartheid system. It's been playing both sides of the fence for a long time. And we're heading more so in that direction. And it's different, it's redefined. How does the young people, how do people who look towards us, what are they thinking about us right now? Especially young people who, like we were saying, everybody says public enemy, we need more public enemies in our life. We need truth in our life, especially because young people move culture pretty fucking fast in this country. How are you guys looking at us?
It's a very, very, very long conversation, that one, my brother. But I think if I can say this, from what I can see personally, is there's a lot of apathy and misunderstanding of what is, apathy in the sense of people not really caring about what's going on, being youths. And then there are others, more in the minority, that do care. And that is a problem first and foremostly. The way people see you, your country, and what's happening there, it's like we feel your pain, because me especially, having been a youth and gone through that, I personally see that as it's different. It's got a different name maybe, but it's the same shit, different day. You know what I'm saying? It's exactly the same racial oppression, political oppression. We called it apartheid, which happens to be a Dutch word. But it's the same thing in another country. And what I am inspired, and a lot of other people are inspired by, being South Africans and having had that apartheid history, I guess, is the fact that you made the whole freaking world stand up and say, no way, this is happening. I'm here in the Netherlands, and I don't know if you guys ever got the news, but young people were standing up, little kids were standing up and going to these protests in each and every city, because I'm not living in South Africa anymore, so I don't have a very clear picture of what happened in that time with George Floyd and everything last year, and the whole pinnacle that it came to because of that incident, very unfortunate incident. But I know that people are ready to say no, and from where I am in this country, it was very clear that people are tired of it, tired of what is happening over there. And it's been happening for so long. The world is watching. Whoever's perpetrating shouldn't think the world ain't seeing anything. They're seeing, they're watching, and they are ready to step out and say, screw this, And for me personally, I don't know if it answers your question, but I would certainly hope that the apathy that some of our youths in hip hop is having would somehow be something that they just cast aside, open their eyes, look at the world, look that it's happening globally, and start standing up. Stand up, stand up, young ones.
Yeah, it's like the youth have been pacified by this, I gotta say this about the hip hop culture, because it's a victim of its own success, right?
Absolutely.
It's been pacified, and you know, Chuck D has said this time and time again, like even within itself, like how Russell Simmons fucked up so badly in not supporting and chasing the dollar, right? And one of the things that's interesting in that pacification, that you know, the way young people in hoods now struggle or quote unquote suffer is like, shit, I don't have the latest cell phone. Oh, I don't have the latest Jordans, but I still have them, you know? And there's something that's so distorted up here about culture. And if you know anything about America, our greatest export was culture. And then by 1980, late 80s or something like that, we started exporting like Baywatch and shit like that, right? But hip hop culture is really, and only happens because there was struggle. Frederick Douglass said it best, right? He said, without a struggle, there's no progress, right? And so this new struggle, we struggle with such comfort. It's crazy. It's crazy. It's crazy the comfort we struggle in. And it becomes so comfortable, we don't feel our pain or we don't feel our neighbor's pain.
Absolutely.
And the voice of hip hop culture, or let's just say, look, I don't like to do this and draw this blanket because there is an industry. The voice of what's in the industry speaks so much louder, and social media speaks so much louder than the reality on the ground. And so that's why I'm so curious about how the world looks at us and empathizes with us, and yet wants to celebrate Black and brown culture, right? And yet they don't. We're in this great conflict. I'm worried about this country. I'm worried about young people, and because it's you know, they have the perfect vehicles, but they're just crashing them into the wall.
Absolutely.
I want to say one thing, because you know, thank you, Carlos, to say that. You know, country like Brazil is still looking for this country right here, New York, specifically United States, as a whole model. You know, and the industry, they know that, because hip hop changed the world. Hip hop changed the world, so they know that. So they use hip hop right now to be whole model for the world, you know, for the, you know, so the way they want to see us, the way they want, that's the reason why we have to, I like it to say, go back to the community, you know, and do our job. We have a job to do, you know, have a work to do, right? Because the industry right now, what they say, taking some young people right here in the Bronx, 20, 21, 22 years old, give a lot of $1 million in hand, say, well, you're gonna do this. You know what I'm saying? This guy don't have information. They not want to spend the money in the community. They want to show us where he spend the money, the things he like it, how many Lamborghinis have in his house. That's you know, the view for people is still, you know, go out for this country. So that's the thing in this. But in another way, in another side, we don't have a, you know, balance. You don't have a, you know, people in some place. I don't say for in general, because I know a lot of countries have a, you know, the hip hop is doing, you know, very good, very well. But we need more balance. The people need to see us like, you know, fight. No, this is not, you know what I'm saying? Because it's so, like you say, Carl, it's so comfortable, you know. You just say, okay.
Well, also, brother, we are a culture that's, particularly here, we're a fucking culture that's entertained by our violence. We are constantly, I left New York, I was sick and tired of New York. I'm sick and tired of advertisements with guns pointed at me. I'm sick and tired of sirens. And you know, that is trauma. That is trauma, going back to what I was saying before. I grew up in a war zone, right? You're extending that for me. I don't need it. I don't need it in my music. You know, I don't need it in my neighborhood. I don't need it in neighborhoods that I go to in other parts of the world. And so as people are modeling us, they're modeling the worst parts of us, right? That said, you know, I am not gonna say that that is the whole of it, right? Because that's
True.
the impression that's being given, because people like you guys, whether you're in Argentina, whether you're in Brazil or in Netherlands, you're on the ground. You see how this actually works, right? It's you work, you know, I'll quote KRS and modify a little bit. Bad boys and bad girls move in silence. You get the shit done, regardless.
Exactly, exactly, exactly.
Foot soldiers.
How do we then, and this is kind of like a little bit paraphrasing the question actually that Emil XY, who has been mentioned already here by from also legendary South African hip hop group Black Noise. Emil was sending a question about the media and how can we create our own platforms and medias and that, but on that and on that same energy, how do we amplify? Because we know that there's a positive hip hop. I know this very well because I work with playing hip hop from around the world, and we tend to play very sort of positive hip hop. How do we amplify the positive, progressive, whatever you want to call? And that's not to say that we shouldn't have, you know, fun records. That's not to say that there shouldn't be party records. That's not to say, but how do we amplify positive things instead of that reminds us of that trauma?
Mikko, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but it's so fucking easy. It's already, the blueprint has been there all along. We just, you know, the blueprint that makes these greedy fucks successful with the worst shit, we can modify that blueprint and change it towards good. As you know, this is what I was saying before. This is why I got into tech. When we got into tech, we said, look, this is giving voice to the voiceless. This levels out the playing field. You don't need, it's a marketing issue. It's a personal marketing issue.
True.
And you have to amplify that. And the thing is that the problem is that everybody's amplifying. So you have to know who you're trying to contact and talk to, who you're aligning yourself, what organizations you align yourself with. You cannot expect, look, here's what's so crazy, guys. Think about this. You get somebody looking at a cat chase a mouse and they're getting 10 million views on that. Tell me that you don't have access, right? You completely have access.
Each and every person has a camera.
It goes back to what you're saying.
Here it is.
Yes. Yes.
There are ways. There are definitely ways you can put yourself out there. I think encouragement is one thing. That's where we come in. That's why we have these platforms like Generation Hip Hop Global, having panels like these. And of course, it has to happen more often in various ways, discussing various things. But it needs to, it needs to be, it is a marketing issue, definitely. I agree with you. But first and foremostly, just encouraging them to get over the fear of actually doing it. It's possible. Everybody is putting like cat and mouse videos and whatever up there, but to create content, how you do it, educating yourself about how to actually create content. I spent a whole year just learning how my YouTube channel works, how the algorithm works, how, I mean, you're speaking about tech now, Carlos, and all of that stuff. Maybe you can even fill in more about that. But I mean, educating yourself about the possibilities and not just doing things for the sake of doing it, but having a knowledge of how to do it, why you were doing it, not for just for the followers and for fame and whatever, because that's also another part of that, you know, we are humans and we kind of have that flaw within all of us, I suppose, that we want to have acceptance and people looking at us and all of those things. So I'm not saying that that is not a possibility that would happen once people start getting more and more into the realization of, hey, there are platforms where I can do things. Others are already doing it. There's so many producers out there that I follow on YouTube, for instance, just maybe using one on Instagram and Facebook and all these places, TikTok. But at the same time, you will always have more of those kind of mindless or senseless, for the lack of a better term, thing, because it's not necessarily serious. It's just up there for the likes and you know, whatever. But even having said that, a lot of people are doing things they really want to on the other hand of it, but then I get a lot of questions from some of my followers that they're just not sure why and if how to do these things, you know. And of course, having followers, having a following means that your reach, your influence, if you want to teach something, if you want to stand up and say something that is something positive or put it out there, whatever you want to do, release your music that speaks about a certain issue, whatever it might be, the positive side Mikko's talking about, how to spread it. You need to know how to get to attract these people. And there are things like algorithms you unfortunately have to kind of study for yourself. And I think
Yeah, it's
education in
also,
that
EJ,
term,
it's also algorithms, but it's also, you know how, like, one of the dope things about, like, let's just say MCs. MCs are storytellers and narratives, and you know, they can weave messages so subvertly into something that could be so popular. Like, again, you take the most popular, like, whatever, let's just pick and choose a sugar-coated song, and you throw an ill beat over it, people will gravitate to that song, to the memory of that rhythm, and then they're forced to listen to what you have to say.
Yeah, that is also true, definitely.
It's a manipulation and strategy. It's kind of like the ghetto tactics, you know, of getting up. Guerrilla marketing as we know it today, it really is as a result of the writers.
Right. Absolutely.
And that logic, that way we think of being resourceful, right, and being sly, and, you know, kind of getting in and getting out. These are tactics that we must employ in these spaces. And what's fascinating, and again, I don't sleep, and where young people are moving into a space of tremendous power within the tech finance space, right? I saw them here in Miami at the Bitcoin conference here. Writers were freaking doing big burners everywhere. It was mixed crowd of everybody, big political statements and presenters. You don't know, these pimple-faced teens could be, you know, multimillionaires walking right next to you, right? And they're shape-shifting the world. And they're, again, they realize, many of them realize that this is a moment, this is a shape-shifting moment for society, and they have to get engaged, right? And so one of the things that we've been trying to say, and many of you here are also investigating this whole NFT space, this whole digital finance space. Well, how do we marry that and weave that into this conversation, you know? And so if you guys have anything on that, you know, just just pass it around.
Yo, Mayor, let me add something. Like, in Argentina, when I get a lot of people that ask me about things, because in Argentina, it's like, for some reason, everybody thinks hip hop started with 50 Cent and Eminem, just to say. And when you try to break it down to them and try to educate them on older stuff, they think you're boring, because they look at you like a dinosaur. Oh, that's past. You know what I mean? That ain't what's happening now. That ain't club music now. And it's just time, because the kids could wait 3 days on the computer for a sneaker to come out to be able to buy it, but they can't take half an hour to get on Google and put a name and research it. You know what I mean? It's so easy. The internet is so easy to find out any information you want on anything, but they rather stay 4 days logged on to a sneaker company that's gonna launch 30 pairs of exclusive bullshit, and they're willing to pay like 7 times what they cost. And that's the mentality they got nowadays. That's what they're being fed. You know what I mean? It's all about what they're dressing, what they're using. You know what I mean? They just want to show off to the next person.
Hey, you sound, you know what, brother? You sound like my father and probably his father with his father and his father with his father. Yeah, you know,
But
that's just
you know
reality.
what? I basically think too that it's all about education, as I said before, because I remember one time when I went up to Cornell University and there were like tons of people waiting on a list, you know, just to be taught about hip hop culture. So now they pay all this money to go to these you know, Ivy League colleges and all that stuff, and they're teaching hip hop culture in these colleges, but they gotta pay. They gotta pay to be taught that. The problem is that get them when they're young. Get them when they're in grade school. Get them when they're in junior high school. Because in those grade schools and junior high school, hip hop culture affects their life. They can say a rap song better than they can do their arithmetic or their math. And so they shouldn't have to wait to go to Ivy League schools to pay all of this money to be taught about hip hop culture. It should be taught in school and educate them. And that's how you change the cycle of hip hop culture where it's not boring. You understand what I'm saying? Where they won't say, oh, they're old dinosaurs or anything. If they're taught when they're babies, they wouldn't have to wait.
There's an interesting
they get to high school or
sorry,
college.
Sorry to break
like,
your word.
No,
Just
go
wanna
ahead.
add to that, of course.
Yes.
One way, a practical way that I saw for myself when I was living in Joburg a couple of years ago. Like a friend of mine, he basically used my lyrics. He was a school teacher.
Okay.
Was also producing for me at the time. And he basically used my lyrics. He was an English teacher, still is. And he would take it into the poetry class. I mean, rappers poetry, right? We all know that by now.
Right.
And it's evolved strongly as well into different ways of writing and things. And he made it more interesting for his class to introduce. I mean, that's just one little practical thing that you can do. And by the end of that year, that they were transformed. They wanted to know more about the culture. Some of them
because
even started
they're engaged.
and stuff.
It's because you're not talking to them. They're engaging in what you're doing, and you're allowing them to participate and say that, okay, I have this talent. But if you're just talking at them and not letting them be a part of the process, that's where the breakdown comes at. So instead of us waiting till they go to Ivy League schools, they should be taught about the culture and the respect and all the elements of how they can make money off the culture, how, as you say before, become producers, become, you know, more than just an MC. These things should be taught because we know that the kids are gravitating to it in as early as preschool. So it needs to be start from there. That's how we change this.
Can I just
it's like let me just say this. Let me say this. When I was young, I remember the best knowledge that I had was from the bum from the block.
Absolutely.
Because the bum that was sitting outside on a wooden box drinking beer, he was observing everything. He knew everything that happened. He knew everything that was going on. And when you stopped to talk to him, he would tell you so many things that you never even thought, like you never even would have thought of. He had so much knowledge, and people used to think they were crazy, like the bums, and you know what I mean?
Right.
But they were like the people that was like the older guys that were playing dominoes outside the bodegas and stuff like that. Those guys used to tell us stories. And a lot of people would not listen because they were thinking, oh, these guys are boring. But I used to pay attention, and a lot of things that they were saying helped me, you know what I mean, in
navigate.
life.
Right.
Yeah, they helped me in life.
Jump in real quick to kind of ask, you know, some of the other folks who've been a little bit quiet, and just to remind folks that, like, you know, everybody here is a hip hop head and know how ciphers work, and you got to just like grab the mic and like jump in. So you know what I'm saying? So but I do
respectfully.
Yes, respectfully jump in. But yeah, so I do want to, you know, kind of open it up for some of the folks who maybe haven't had a chance to contribute, especially, I don't know, you know, in terms of India, transparency, I have no idea of what's happening in India. I've been to Brazil and I've, you know, been to South Africa. I have no idea of what situations are happening in India. So I don't know if you want to contribute a little bit to the conversation.
So like when you think about like how we're taking from, you know, the origins of hip hop and how it is and how it is received and all of that, it's kind of crazy, like what was told like sometime back, that also because I feel that we are so much surrounded by Bollywood in India.
Mhm.
So, you know, it has such a huge impact on everybody. But to, you know, like really establish something that is hip hop and in its authentic way, it kind of gets difficult because people are just jumping onto what is trendy. You know, when you want to give them the right knowledge or the roots of it, again it is boring, you know. So there are a lot of things that also, me coming in from, like, I was born in the late 80s, so I believe I'm placed somewhere in the middle of when technology wasn't there so much, and you know, the generation now, and I feel I'm somewhere in the middle, kind of. I don't know, there needs to be a balance, because yes, you know, we have Google, it has everything out there, but then there's something where there's a reason to it where I think that people are not ready to engage, you know, into the real stuff, into the authentic stuff. For some reason, you know, they just want these 15 minutes funny videos, 10 seconds, something, and they want to flip, you know, the whole thing of just concentrating and absorbing something, you know, that is
Good point.
way more, you know, higher or authentic, or you know, which could be, you know, more life changing, or you know, in a lot of ways people don't want, they just don't want to see that kind of stuff. They don't want to, or I would say they just want to switch off from the reality and just, you know, just go away from it. You know, that is what they are wanting to consume nowadays, is what I feel. They don't want to come in contact with what is real, you know, in a lot of ways, because there's always this kind of rejection of a lot of these things that should be done and how it should be done, but somehow doesn't get done. Because when I look into the history and I feel like, all right, we need to, you know, learn from their mistakes, and we shouldn't be repeating those things, and we need to be, you know, to be careful and mindful about a lot of things. Again, it comes up to the fact that I see that it's like a cycle. We are kind of trapped in it, and we kind of tend to make the same things happen again for some reason, and we are not able to break out of it. So it kind of gets messy as to how right now I feel, yes, we have the internet, yes, we have all of this stuff that's happening around us, but how do we get the people to absorb the right stuff? Because that's what is not happening. No matter how much you try, something that is just trendy is going to catch up, and people are just going to so easily, 95% of the people are just going to shift towards it. You know, if there's, for example, in dancing, if there's a choreography class to a very popular, say, Bollywood hip hop beat kind of fusion, people are going to go for that kind of a class, then come, you know, take my groove class or something like that. And here, I think we need to understand, how do we amplify this? How do we work towards it? How do we bridge that gap? That, all right, yes, I mean, nothing against what is trendy. I mean, that is what is catching people's attention. But like, how do we get people to, you know, really look into the stuff that is real, and that, you know, can really actually be useful, can be life changing, can give you a purpose, and so much more, you know? So I feel I won't say we're stuck. People are kind of making moves, you know. Again, with me, when I look up to a lot of people, where, you know, I preserved a lot of my stuff just so that people could come watch me in the cypher. And I wouldn't put my dance videos back then. It was something like, if you want to see, when they hear my name, it was more like, if you want to see me dance, come to the club, come dance with me, or come to the next battle and you can probably battle me, or you can watch me in the ciphers. A lot of those things, as to how do we carry on those things also and transition it into what it is right now, this reality. Like, we're not together, but this also is another beauty, like connecting with all of you all across, away, who's not even in, in India, like taking the goods from all the sides and just blending it and, making it work, I feel, is what is needed. Because definitely, I feel we need to preserve all of the things that come from the past, a lot of things, because if we change the whole face of hip hop and completely, give it a complete makeover, and we don't recognize it, where it goes to a point where it doesn't even look like hip hop anymore. What's the point, So taking things from back there and blending it with things that could give possibilities in the current situations right now. I think that is something that we really need to do, because I'm somewhere, I'm like in the middle. I can see both the sides, and I know what is good out here, and that can be brought together, blended, made some, more beautiful out of it. And yeah, I mean, that's what I feel right now.
I do agree with you, my sis.
Let me just get one thing in real quick. What she was saying, when you have doubts about something, I think it's easier to reach out to somebody from that era, because a lot of people think that a lot of rappers, for to say, or MCs have egos and they probably won't answer you and stuff like that, but that's wrong. Because the ex-director of Rolling Stone magazine was doing an article on hip hop and Harlem World. And when he wanted my opinion, I read it, and it was like half wrong. And I told him, and he said, no, but I got this from doing research on the internet. And I said, hold up. And I did a graph job for Reggie Reg from the Crash Crew. And I hit up Reggie Reg, and I asked him, can you give me details and can you answer these questions about Harlem World? And when he took his time and he did it for me, he sent it back to me in a couple of days. I gave it to the director of Rolling Stone, and it had nothing to do with what he was writing. So luckily, that information was fixed and the real truth got out there. Because you could imagine if the director would have put what he thought it was and what he learned off of internet and would have just let it out there, everybody would have thought that was the real Harlem World. So sometimes you just got to reach out to people from that era. It just doesn't have to be one person. You can hit up a lot of different people and you'll always get feedback, because everybody wants to be part of this. You know what I mean? They all want to help out. So that's the good thing. Always trying to reach out. You know what I mean? Just don't guide by what internet says, because internet, there's always mix-ups. So just try to reach out to somebody from that era that will really put the truth in your mouth.
Thank you so much. I think we've had like amazing speeches here, amazing conversations, amazing thoughts and ideas. Eli Efi, thank you so much for being with us. Sha-Rock already had to go. We are running a little bit for, beyond our initially planned time. And also Carlos had to go. Thank you everybody so much who are here. But for those of us who are still here and who might be able to be, I guess we are starting to wrap up. Thank you, Eli Efi. I think that kind of call to action, we have to think about this. We were talking about earlier a little bit, how do we amplify, how do we use that same model that already exists? Sometimes I wonder if there's too much of a, like, when everybody is doing their own thing, everybody's promoting their own thing. I know this very well. We're all promoting our own thing. I want you to like my photo, retweet my tweet, all that stuff. And we're all kind of doing that. But how do we build towards like a bigger thing in that sense, that are we all then in competition with each other if we have a podcast, if we have a platform, if we have a anything like that, YouTube channel, so on and so forth. How can we amplify these voices that we have in a way that we can, I don't want to say compete with the industry necessarily, because that already sounds like an awful lot of bother, but nevertheless, like, how can we get that word out there?
I think one serious form is collabing, just collaborating on various platforms with each other. If I have a platform, I have you on my platform, and many others, and likewise. I think that is a very practical way of doing it. I see, to mention YouTube again, because I'm watching a lot of YouTube these days, following other producers, music producers, beat makers, and I see that the beat stars up there, not the beat selling platform, but we call them the beat stars, the ones who have reached a certain level on this platform are now, using the influence that they have, and also their time to engage others by having others that have an influence on another, that have a different influence or a different audience. They have them on their platform, and they are introducing people that you might never have heard of, doing incredible things to you. And I'm always like, wow, I've never heard of this person doing this kind of thing, and I got introduced by somebody else. So I think that is one great thing, collabing in various ways. Like, I mean, as music producers, we always have, artists collaborate with each other, and it's the same principle. It's a blueprint. So let's try and maybe have that kind of thing happening. It's been around for ages. It's not news, you know what I mean? Like collaborating with each other. But I think it needs to be sped up a little bit. More of it needs to happen, and in different areas of hip hop culture, to get the word out there and to make it more exciting as well. And one other thing that I thought about when Ambi was speaking, she had the question of, how do we, use some of the good that we have in as we don't want to call ourselves old school, but from that back in the day vibe that we have and everything, to the new culture that's growing and evolving. I mean, I think from my music perspective and music production perspective, what I had to do this past 2 years was to learn how to create the sound of now, because I was still stuck within the 90s sound. And although there are still a lot of people doing and listening to that, and me myself, I enjoy the 80s music, I enjoy that, but hip hop is evolving constantly. We got to keep up and kind of sacrifice a little bit of our own to step in there, to have an influence on those who are younger, who are experiencing it in a different way, not compromising in any way. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying, like, how do we influence them? We should come up, or go way up to their level, or get to their level, So yeah, I think it's going to take a lot of humility to do that, and of course a lot of research, and just to tap into the vein of what the young ones are feeling right now and what moves them, so that we can have an influence there as well.
Excuse me, I gotta go because they're waiting for me, and they're screaming at me from far away. It's a pleasure. It was a pleasure being here. Thanks for this. If there's ever another opportunity, at least this let me loose to be able to do this, because I really, you know what I mean? This is the first time I'm actually doing this. I never liked doing this. I felt good in this one because a lot of people said a lot of nice things. A lot of people put in positive things. A lot of people want hip hop to really grow and be on the good side. We need to get, like she said, you need people collaborating, you know what I mean? If you have a contact, maybe that can work for someone else, pass it to them. There's a lot of ego. Everybody saves their contacts for them. They don't want to share and stuff like that because everybody wants to be important. But if I got something, so if I know someone that can help her on a certain project, I will pass it to her. If she, the same way it should be for everyone, you know what I mean? That way hip hop can grow for the better. I gotta go. Thanks for everything.
It's good to meet you, my brother. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.
I think that Rene, I wonder if you are, if you're there, maybe it's time for us to start wrapping up. We've gone kind of like a little bit over our allocated time, but thank you so much. But it seems that people need to already move to next things and all that. But this has really been a wonderful conversation. I'm really very grateful to have been part of this.
Thank you so much for having me and just putting me in this beautiful conversation. It's just going to stay with me like forever. Thank you so much.
Yeah, I also want to say thank you to Generation Hip Hop Global for having this platform, having me on this platform, and meeting all of the amazing legends that we had on this panel tonight. Thank you so much.
Yeah, me too. I want to thank you. Yeah, I didn't talk too much, but I was amazed of the old school original stories. So I keep just listening.
It's also always very valuable to just listen. I really know how you feel.
Yeah, thank you everyone for being a part of this dynamic conversation. Yeah, there's a lot of listening happening, a lot of respect, a lot of love, a lot of compassion that goes on globally, you know. So we just want to say really thank you, all the participants on this panel. Thank you, Sia, Mikko, for being, you know, wonderful co-moderators and making this happen. Thanks to all the viewers here that have been watching this conversation, because it's important that, you know, these torches are passed on and, you know, taking action beyond just even the listening, but even, you know, taking action beyond that and seeing that, you know, hip hop is alive and, you know, is doing great things, and let's keep the growth and the evolution with it. If you guys have not been following us, I'd like for you guys to take a moment on Instagram and follow us at GECSUMMIT. That's GECSUMMIT. GECSUMMIT. We'll have information on all the panelists here, so you can follow them as well, because I feel it's very important that you follow all these dynamic people doing great things all over the world. And we will be here doing this live next year, November 2022. So, you know, we won't be online. We'll be in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil doing this. So, you know, we look forward to that. And, you know, special thanks to all our supporting organizations from Hip Hop Loves, Generation Hip Hop, Hip Hop Movimento, Cultural Fix, Larma Entertainment, Hip Hop Union, Junior Music Executive. Thanks for everyone who's doing these great things. And we're here every month. Actually, now going into this season will be the third Saturday of the month. So check us out there. You know, we have some dynamic conversations. And actually next week, we're gonna have this same subject panel of hip hop architects in Spanish. So you can check us out on the 26th, same time. And you know, it's gonna be a dynamic conversation. So, you know, look us up on the site within that. Special thanks always to the crew that puts this together. It takes a lot of time to put these things together. Apollonia, Raquel, Natalie. Once again, let's just give a love and heart to Natalie. It's her birthday. Happy birthday, Natalie. You know, much love to you. And peace and love, everybody. Keep shining, keep doing what you're doing. And, you know, let's stay connected and let's all coexist together. One love. You can stay on for a minute, right?
We are done. It was like, yo, not pass go.
I don't want to start cursing and shit.
You have to see the other Natalie. Yeah, thank you, EJ and Kapi. I'm about to put you on the panel for next week and the next month and the next month because I would love to hear more from you. Muchas gracias, Ambi, Mikko, and Msia. Always mad love to both of you for holding it down. And so thank you all for joining us. Please keep us abreast of what's happening and keep us in the loop. Send us, spam us with the flyers and projects and however we can support you. Let us know. It's all love. We're all family. Welcome to the global family. And it's not just a platform. We'll continue this work. So thank you all. So
she already said everything. I'm not gonna say anything.
Actually, I was so lost in listening to all of these amazing people. For me, it was just like I was taking notes. I was just like listening to all of it and a little bit also intimidated because wow, I mean, you know, like for someone, even though I might be a pioneer in my country, I'm like so young, and also being respectful towards all of them was so important and key for me. Like I didn't know when to cut in, you know. It was just like, oh, wow. But like, thank you so much. This was so fruitful.
I think that I'm not sure if it was the first one of these online ones, but I think it was one of the early ones. Me and Zear, we were both panelists there, and I know how it feels because I was also like not saying too much because there were like really amazing people there, Chipfu and Ready D, you know, you know, from South Africa, Prophets of the City, and all that stuff. There were like great people there. So I really know how it is. I was really feeling like, you know, I think it's important that these people are speaking now, and so I really know how it is. But it was really great that each and every one was here because I think we really had great stories.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks guys. I unfortunately also have to go, so I just want to say thank you. Sorry, Clara.
Real quick thing, one thing for everyone here. What we're going to ask everyone to do is if you can do a video testimonial, which can be from like 30 seconds to like 2 minutes, just explaining like your experience on this panel, and discuss that. Like we'd like to share that with everybody. So, and you can post it in the group, the WhatsApp group chat when you finish it. Like you can just do it off your phone, whatever, you know, just take a moment to, you know, just share what your feelings are within that. So we appreciate that.
All right.
Once again, thank you to the whole team.
Bye. Thank you. Adios, Kapi.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. Bye.
Ciao, ciao.
Bye, Mikko.
Bye.
And now I got the. Am I frozen? Oh. Raquel.
Oh my God.
Raquel's eyelashes are going.
Yo, what are you doing? You're like...
Hold on. Don't move, Raquel. Hold on.
Now we have to celebrate her birthday all week until her
to the Spanish.
Okay, I got a screenshot of yo. That's a new gift, yo. You like, we're gonna have on a panel.
Raquel has no idea what's happening.
Yo, did we get the bio?
I'm back.
Oh man.
What happened?
Yo, okay, so you froze, like you got off, but your screenshot was with you like this. I took a screenshot.
Can you see me now? Yes.
Oh,
I'm having some
It was so classic. You were like, Raquel.
Oh.
That was another experience, man.
Yeah.
It was amazing.
I gotta say with this one, this on a whole level, the process was just interesting because like getting people confirmed, getting the information, like getting all this stuff. Like I was just sitting here like, okay, This is
got them all here.
Exactly. I'm sitting here like, yo, I'm like, God, like, I don't know what, like, you know, when you have certain things, you're like, okay, this kind of flow. I'm like, we're gonna see what happens with this, you know? Yeah. It was cool, man. It was cool, but it was interesting. But I laughed because I was getting like message. Yo, when Zear was talking, like, yo, like, can the moderators go in? Da, 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 da. I'm like, okay, yeah, it's like we talking about it already. But as soon as everyone else had that voice, they were doing the same shit that Zear was doing. And I'm like, it was hilarious. Like, yeah.
Yeah.
Totally.
Man.
Totally.
Don't move, Apple.
Oh, my Apple, yo. Yeah,
what happened?
Apple, you're too.
I don't understand. Oh man.
Yeah. No.
So let's prep for next week.
Like,
But it was a bit